Hello, everyone. Welcome to Take Back My Brain. I'm your host, Lori Hammer, and today we're going to talk about sleep and the brain with Kathryn Munoz. You're going to love this conversation. Kathryn is a biopharmaceutical. She's got what do I want to say? A degree in biopharmaceuticals, and she also is a nutritional biochemist, and she has so many things going on in her life. I just asked her, like, how do you ever sleep? Because we're going to talk about sleep. She's like, I have a lot going on, but she still does sleep. And she and a colleague have written a book recently that she'll tell us about in a little bit on sleep and the brain. And so, I love the brain. So, welcome to the show, Kathryn.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, and I love the title of your podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. It's fun. We get to cover a lot of topics, and people really enjoy it for sure.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So, you're coming out with the book, The Sleep Switch. Is that correct?
Yes, we're just getting ready to launch it very soon. And it was written by myself and Keith Abloh, who is an MD, really a renowned psychiatrist. For many, many years, he practiced psychiatry. He's been a New York best time seller. And he's now does a program called Pain to Power, which is to help enrich people's lives.
Wow.
As we all go through painful moments. So we together we wrote this, and we're the co-founders of a company called For Vita Health that focuses on all natural supplements and different types of other programs to help people with sleep or with brain fog or with mood, which we all have issues with
We all have
sometimes.
issues with mood at some point in time. So for sure. I know I was just telling you, I was looking at your products before we got on and like, oh, these are a lot of the same things that I use with my clients. So I love the formulas you have and I honestly can't wait to try them. So, but I really want to dive into sleep because I have so many listeners and so many clients that come to me like, I just can't sleep. I've done XYZ and, I feel like I'm losing my mind because I can't sleep. And
Mhm.
I've had periods in my life too where that has been a struggle. So,
Yeah.
what is our sleep supposed to look like, Kathryn?
So we're supposed to fall asleep pretty fast, within 10 minutes or so of getting into bed. And we're supposed to be able to sleep all the way through the night until our circadian rhythm wakes us up in the morning, either when the light comes in or our body says, okay, it's time to wake up. But 1/3 of Americans are not getting that kind of sleep. It's so
Right.
disruptive. I think with our busy schedules and children and activities and TVs and digital products, we all just seem to not end up sleeping well. I mean, you mentioned that you've had sleeping issues. I had serious sleep issues at some points in my life to the point where I was put on a medication,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't help.
Doesn't help.
Okay, I'm not gonna say it didn't help me fall asleep. It helped me sleep, but it knocked me out to the point that I was doing things like sleepwalking and
Yeah.
asking my
Yeah.
husband to bake cookies in the middle of the night and not even knowing it. So yeah, so we all at some time in our life do have issues with sleep. And then that's what it really should look like. We shouldn't be struggling, but our lifestyles these days, it makes it tough.
Yeah. And I think we've normalized disrupted sleep for sure. Because
Hmm.
I'll ask clients, I'm like, so what does it look like when you go to sleep? Oh, I sleep great. And then I have to say, so do you wake up during the middle of the night at all? Oh, maybe two or three times, but then I go right back to sleep and then this or that. Or I only get up twice to go to the bathroom. And,
Yeah,
we have to
yeah.
say, well, that's not optimal, nor is it normal. It might be common,
Right.
but it's not normal.
Yeah.
So what are the things that wake us up and disrupt our sleep?
I think a lot of it has to do with cortisol levels.
Oh my goodness,
So
yes.
yeah, so we're supposed to have low cortisol levels at night while we're sleeping, but so many things disrupt our cortisol levels these days that's the typical wake up at the 2 or the 3 a.m. time period. So I think that's part of it, and also, just people go to sleep with the TV on and then they need to get up and turn it off, or God forbid you have to go to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a night, so that interrupts. You have a sleep partner who tends to snore and you wake up with that, or a dog in the bed. So there's all these environmental things that actually can affect our sleep.
Right, right. And so when you were, doing your research and everything for this book, what are the things that we can do as we're trying to navigate, our partner and our animals and our kids and all those kind of things, like it's hard to get a good night's sleep when you have outside factors coming in on you.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really good tips, and I'm sure you offer these similar ones to your clients. First, have that regular pattern when you go to bed. So the things that you do when you start to wind down for the evening, there's a specific pattern that each of us should get ingrained in us, in order to help tell our brain that it's time to go to sleep now. And some of those things are like turning off the TV, dimming the lights, maybe reading a book, doing some meditation or some stretching exercises just to kind of unwind your body. A lot of people like to journal because they can write down everything that they need to do the next day and then not think about it.
Right.
Um, I think those are some of the things, or even things like, you're getting ready for bed, you wash your face, you brush your teeth. Those things signal to your brain like it's time to unwind and go to bed. I think
Hmm.
those are, the really pretty simple things. Turn off your phone an hour before going to bed. That really helps.
Why? Why does that help, Catherine?
For a couple of reasons. One, when you're doom scrolling, it ignites your brain, right? All the
Right.
neurotransmitters start going crazy and start firing because you're getting engaged instead of winding down. And then the second thing is all the blue light that comes from our computer screens and our phones
Hmm.
and TVs. That blue light actually triggers our brain that it's not time to go to sleep, and you want to stop that trigger.
Right.
So we can either stop it by turning those off, and some people do by wearing like blue light glasses or something
Sure.
like that.
Are those actually helpful?
I think they are. I use
Okay.
them
Okay, me
myself.
too.
Yeah, I we don't sell them, but I do have some that I use. They're very helpful because, part of what we go into the book is the triggers that in our circadian rhythm cycle. And there's something called Zeitbergers, which are both internal and external sources. And the external sources, one of those is the blue light that
Okay.
triggers us to stay awake. And so, yes, if you can block that, it does really help.
Right. So what do you say to people who are like, "Oh, I have to, be on my phone right before bed," or like I'm looking at I'm 50. I don't know how old you are. You're definitely younger than I am.
No,
But
I'm not.
no, okay, well, you look amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. But we didn't have that growing up. I think I slept really good as a kid and I didn't have any blue light. And
Mhm.
like why do we feel like we have to do that, you know? Like just
You know,
put the phone away.
I think everybody's different, right? So some people have an older member in their family, a mom or a dad, that they're always worried about because God
Right.
forbid something happens at the night and I don't have my phone on or next to me, I'm not going to hear it. And that's a huge concern.
Huge concern. Yeah, because we don't have
Um,
landlines anymore.
right, exactly. And so that's one big one. Um, Other people, it's because work is constantly,
Hmm.
my boss is going to email me at 11 at night and I need to be available. I need to
And you
see
say,
that.
no, don't do that.
Right. No, don't. But then in the back of your mind, you're thinking, if I don't, they're going to think I'm a slacker. So, it's that pressure, the work pressure, the family pressure.
Right.
It happens. And so we do the best that we can to take all of these things and combine them so that if you're not able to do one thing perfectly, you
Hmm.
can do other things perfectly and get one thing mostly right. And then that will definitely help.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like our society has we don't guard our sleep. We don't honor our sleep anymore.
Mm-mm.
Like we used to. Like sleep's a big thing. If you don't sleep, you don't heal.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I teach my clients all the time. So we have to honor your sleep. We have to, figure this out for you. Otherwise, we'll have long-term issues. And I can't supplement away bad sleep, right? So, our society is like, you're just saying, let's be available at 11 p.m. Well, no, we shouldn't be available. There has to be a cutoff. And when enough people say no, then
Yeah,
society changes.
yeah.
And where do you think that started, that dishonoring of sleep or just not guarding it, not valuing, sleep?
I think corporate life for a lot of people, it started there.
Hmm.
When we're kids, like you said, we sleep so well because we're outdoors playing. Well, we used to be outdoors playing, exercising, doing sports, doing all those things, and very active during the day. So that partially contributes to why we're not maybe sleeping as well. But then you're working in that corporate life, it's tough. And if you have
Yeah.
kids and family on top of that, or even by themselves, that contributes to it as well. Like we're just always on. And I think
Hmm.
it's going to I don't think it's getting any better. So unless individually we learn to take control of our own selves and do
Hmm.
those things to protect us, it's not going to come from the external environment.
Yeah, for sure. What role does, I mean, we talked about blue light exposure, but what about just light in general, like coming in from the windows, or maybe you have
Mhm.
a night light on? Your
Yes.
husband gets up to pee and flips the light on, and then you were sound asleep, and all of a sudden your cortisol gets jacked up, and then you can't go back to sleep, and he gets back in and he's snoring away. What
Yeah,
do you do with
exactly.
that?
So any type of light. And some people will tell you, like if you read or listen to the Huberman Lab, for example, he'll tell you to put black tape over all your light,
Yeah,
every single kind of light that's coming through. And it's true because your eyes are, they say it's the pathway to the soul, but it's really the pathway to the brain as well.
yeah,
And so when it senses that light, it wakes up. And
yeah,
so, yes, any type of light that's coming in.
yeah.
And
I've
then
even
if
read,
you
I was
go
gonna say,
ahead.
go ahead, that's fine.
If you feel like, oh my God, it's going to be so dark, I'm not going to be able to wake up in the morning. There are other things that you can do to
Hmm.
have that sleep cycle working. Like there's certain lights that you can purchase
Yeah.
that will automatically come on at a certain time. So things like that. And a lot of people wear a sleep mask because they can't, turn off all the lights.
Right. But I've read studies too where even if light is exposed, your skin is exposed to light, that still disrupts your circadian rhythm. Is this something you found in your research as well?
I didn't see that anywhere. That's
Okay.
interesting. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, because it's been a while since I've read it, but just, even when you wear a sleep mask, if you have light coming in your window and stuff, it's still, you don't get as deep of a sleep.
Yeah, no, blackout curtains are awesome,
They are.
especially during the summer.
Hmm.
Um, anything that you can do to just block out that light till it's time for your body to wake up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, what about late night eating?
Oh God, we all love
I
to
mean,
do
these
that.
are things we can
Oh,
control because some things we can't control. You can't control if your husband gets up to
yeah,
pee, right?
no.
Or, if the dog pukes on the floor next to you. But we can control eating. So talk about how that affects our circadian rhythm.
Yeah, so let's talk about the whole eating cycle though, because it's not just what you eat before you go to bed, it's what you're eating during the day, right?
Yeah.
That has significant changes. So obviously caffeine is a huge one.
Yes.
One of my physicians at the Mayo Clinic, who was an incredible integrative medicine guy, he was like, "No caffeine for you after 2 o'clock." And
Right?
I said, "I don't drink caffeine anyway." But so he couldn't help me there. But yeah, so what you're doing during the day, like that caffeine will keep you up, even though you don't think it will.
Hmm.
Alcohol, people love to have that glass of wine,
They
maybe
say it
at dinner.
relaxes them so they can go to sleep, but
It has the opposite effect.
opposite. Thank you.
It
Yes.
wakes you back up, right? So
Hmm.
that's what the research says anyway. So those are two huge things that people can try and avoid or limit.
Hmm.
Um, Big meals in the evening are never good because you're still trying to digest. And so, either a lot of people do have issues with GERD or, having the food
Hmm.
come back up. So it's not good for that reason because then you wake up and your throat and your stomach are burning and you don't
Yeah.
know what to do.
Yeah.
But also, the smaller meal in the evening is always best, whether it be for sleep or for metabolic issues. But
Hmm.
I will say it is important to make sure that the kind of but like if you're going to snack on something, because sometimes when people wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, it's because their blood sugar levels are off.
Right.
But for individuals who are finding that situation, eat something very light, maybe a glass of milk, a piece of cheese, something with protein in it and a little bit of fat to kind of stabilize those sugars overnight.
Yeah.
And for most people, stay away from the spice because that could keep you awake.
Really? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That is good to know. Um, when we're talking about food or some people say, oh, I'm a night owl, so I stay up and I have snacks late at night. And some people are like, I'm a morning person. Can you talk about those different types of people and why there are those differences?
It's metabolic. Some people are just
Right.
built that way. And people who are night owls, who try to convert themselves to early birds, are miserable. And vice versa. And so it's better to figure out what kind of person, what kind of sleep person you are, and then go with it. And if you can change it by a half an hour to an hour, you may do okay. But if you try to make huge shifts, you can't. And so, just stick with that pattern that your body is already set to.
Right.
Don't try and like mess with it too much because you're just going to end up miserable.
Right. And I would say, and let me know if you agree with this with your research and stuff. So I have clients that come like, oh, I stay up till 1 a.m. And so then, because I'm such a night owl, I'm like, well, you're not really getting good quality sleep at 1 a.m. So we really need to get you back before midnight. So
Yeah.
we kind of
Yes.
incrementally work back to say
Yep.
like 11, which seems, more
Mhm.
reasonable. 10 is ideal. So what do you say to those people like, I can't go to sleep before 12?
It's a painful process, but
Okay.
like you say, and like you cancel, if you try, it's the same way when you're traveling someplace that has a 3 or 4 hour time difference. If you do it in short intervals before you travel, like 15 minutes, go to bed 15 minutes earlier, then do that for a week, then 15 minutes earlier, do that for a week, and then until you're at that time
Yeah.
that you actually want to fall asleep. And
Right.
it's still not going to be easy. It's just their body is set
It
that way.
takes a while and to not get stressed out about it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the worst thing you can do, right? Is because then you get sleep stress, which means
Hmm.
that you're anxious about not being able to fall asleep. And then
Right.
that causes even more anxious thoughts, and then the brain just starts spinning.
Right. Well, and that's where your supplementation comes in too, right? With your GABA
Yeah.
and the ashwagandha and some melatonin. So maybe speak to that a little bit, how those things can help.
Yeah, so supplements can be really helpful in adjusting people to a sleep schedule. And even for people to stay on beyond that point because our bodies are sometimes lacking these nutrients now
Mm-hmm.
because our food is so devoid of them. And so things like ashwagandha, which helps relax the brain, magnesium is a huge
Mm-hmm.
one that we recommend everybody take some magnesium.
Right.
Hops, you were like, oh, I can have a
Let's
beer.
have a
No,
beer. No, that's not what we're saying.
not the alcohol, but there are hops in our supplements that's a blended supplement. So all those things that work together in different ways to help relax the body and the mind and help people fall asleep. I think, the one, and you probably tell your clients the same thing. You can take individual supplements, you could take an ashwagandha supplement
Mm-hmm.
or a GABA supplement and try those out. But really, the new thing is these third generation supplements that are blended so
Mm-hmm.
that they're blended with the specific amounts of ingredients in them that are made to combine together to work in the right proportions. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I think people just need to, it's a test really,
Trial
because
and error a little bit. Yeah.
it is because not every supplement works for everybody. And we know that. That's why we have 100% money back guarantee because we know, well, we've had great success. It doesn't work for every person. Every person is different.
Right, right. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit, because we touched on it, to the medication and what that's actually doing in your brain when we're taking a sleep medication?
Yeah, so I'm not a pharmacist.
Okay.
If you asked
But
a
you are a
pharmacist,
biochemist, so you've
I
got
am,
some insight here.
I am a biochemist, but I mean, it basically depends on the type. Like, there's different categories, like benzodiazepines, and then there's,
Hmm.
things like the Ambien type, and they work differently, but essentially, they all work on the receptors, different receptors in the brain to just almost completely shut them down. And so you just become a non-functioning person, almost like you're in a coma because of the way the drugs interact with the brain.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like putting your brain to sleep, but you're not really asleep.
You're not really
You're
asleep.
not
It's just
getting that
kind of,
deep, restorative, healing
no,
sleep, even with the
no.
medication.
And
So,
that's, yeah, and that's why people always wake up feeling like so disoriented in the morning
yeah,
because those neurons and the neurotransmitters that it's attacking and that this
Yeah.
binding to, they're either blocked or they're overly excited and it doesn't help us in any way in the morning.
Yeah, definitely, definitely not. So, how do EMFs affect sleep?
So I guess, we didn't do a lot of research in
Okay.
our book on EMFs, but from we did the research, we just didn't include it as much
Sure.
in, yeah. They do seem, just as with, different types of rhythms of music or different types of beats, how people go to sleep. Those EMFs, the waves in those can actually cause disruptions with our electrical systems. And people don't think of us as, having electricity, but
Right.
that's what we are. We're made up of energy. And so when those radio frequencies come in, it can disrupt everything.
Right. I know. So in my bedroom, we don't even have lamps. I don't have anything plugged in our bedroom at
Yeah.
all. And we have a battery operated alarm clock. So the only thing, I mean, other than the light switch, there's
Yeah.
nothing else plugged in our room just because we want to make sure we don't have any of that extra stray electricity
Yeah.
going on in the bedroom at all. And our bed frame is wood, so there's nothing to conduct anything
Yeah.
with metal. So like little tiny tips like that can help people for sure.
It can. And some people are more sensitive to it than
Hmm.
others as well. Some people say, I don't have any problems. I can keep my phone right next to me and,
Yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't bother me. But really, is it not bothering you? Or are you just not
You
realizing
know
it?
how deep sleep you're getting. I'm going to guess
Yeah.
it is affecting you because the
Yes.
research shows that.
Yes.
So, Kathryn, I'm thinking of a particular friend in general, and she has tried everything for sleep, like everything that we've talked about, and
Yeah.
she still cannot sleep. Like, what would be the next step for somebody who's like, I made my room dark, I got rid of my phone, I got rid of anything that's plugged in, I don't eat late,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Then what?
So, I had to go through this myself, so I can say that it does help. Going to therapy, I went to a sleep therapist.
Yeah?
Um, and actually we offer sleep coaching with one of our programs and so it really digs deep, like deep into what's really getting you that's keeping you awake.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
And for me, it was like the constant thinking about work and not being able to turn that off. For other people, it's, family issues. Um, Sorry about that. Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, good. My screen went crazy. So, it's really digging deep and looking at who you are internally that will then translate into becoming a better sleeper for the rest of your life. And it's a lot of work to go through that, but it's well worth it. I mean, we know that not sleeping, the research shows that not sleeping takes years off of your life. If you
Yeah.
get, if you're missing even just a few nights a week, it starts deleting the years that you could spend living happily.
Right, because it increases your risk for dementia, Alzheimer's, and
Yes,
those kinds of
yeah.
things. Yeah, because you
So
don't get
yeah,
that
there's no,
restore.
and yeah, and there's other, there's a lot of different now devices that people
Mm-hmm.
can use that I haven't tried yet. I ordered a couple to see if how, how well they work.
Yeah.
Uh, One I ordered is I haven't tried it, so I don't know if I can recommend it, is the Happy, which is a mat
Yeah.
that
Yeah. That one's pretty popular right now.
yes, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to try that. And then, there's these new visors and things that you can
Mm-hmm.
wear that help relax your mind. So, but I think for somebody that's tried all that, definitely some type of cognitive therapy is going to be the next step.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple challenging questions, just, like
Uh-oh.
practical stuff, like in your research or people that you've dealt with. What if it's your husband who's keeping you awake? Like, should you
Yeah,
sleep in separate rooms then? Like, guard your sleep to that degree? And I know it's a personal choice.
yeah,
But
it's a
how do you get around it if they're snoring and they're getting up? And you know what I mean?
yes.
I mean, you can put the
It's
dog in a kennel and then put the dog,
yeah,
downstairs. You can't
yeah.
put your husband in a kennel somewhere. So
No,
what
no,
do you do with
no.
that?
You can't force your husband or your wife to sleep on the couch
No. Yeah.
and so, I think that's really tough. There are recommendations like I'm a cover stiller.
Yeah.
So,
Different
I end up with
covers, right?
and so we have separate blankets just so that I
Mm-hmm.
don't steal everything from him.
Right.
Um for somebody that is consistently snoring, they really probably need to be evaluated by a physician to see if they have sleep apnea,
Yeah.
which will then fix that problem. I mean, I hate to see people sleeping in separate bedrooms. I know it has to happen a lot of times, but because, if you have a partner or you're married, you want to have that
You want to have that
intimacy
time
with them.
together.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. And
Yeah,
it builds you up,
it
right?
does. Yeah.
But if it's not building you up, then you got to do something. So
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I think that's really the last resort. I would personally recommend doing therapy before going to that next step because that tends to cause additional issues that you have to deal with down the road.
Right. Absolutely. What do you do with a wife that's like super hot and the husband is not? Because temperature plays a role in sleep, doesn't it?
Uh-huh. Again, separate blankets. They have these really cool, they're like a mattress cover that blow air into the mattress or the bed essentially and
Oh,
regulate your temperature. They
that's
have,
cool.
yeah, so those tend to work really, really well for cold sleepers like myself or hot,
Mm-hmm.
hot sleeper. You can adjust the temperature there. So
There's
there's
tools out there.
technology that can help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, rather than lowering the room to 60 degrees and one person's freezing and the other person's still burning up.
Right. I like that the wind is flying through the room because
Yeah,
the window's open.
exactly.
Everybody else is
Yes.
like got their stocking hats on.
Yes, I know somebody like that. I
Oh,
know
me too.
somebody who's like, I have to sleep in my hat and muffs because my partner is the opposite and it just, that's what he does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Did you come across anything about like co-sleeping with your kids that affects anything? Does that help them later in life or anything of that
You know,
nature?
we don't have any of that in the book,
Okay.
but just from my background, as a scientist, um, kids sleeping in a bed can be pretty difficult because they're going to be waking you up all night if they have
Mm-hmm.
to wake up, or you're going to be waking them up, but that's not good for them. Once they're in a crib and able to sleep, as most kids are, even from being newborns, it's better for them to be in their own separate space and get their own special sleep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anything you want to leave our listeners with about sleep?
I think that the thing is, you're not alone. Like, you're just not alone. There's so many people who are experiencing this. So don't be anxious about seeking help, whether it be through, some type of therapy, whether it be somebody like yourself, combining supplements with other types of devices, whatever you need to do to get your sleep. It's something people are just going to have to work on to get it done. But you're not alone. They're not alone.
Awesome. Because it is a lot of the population is struggling with sleep right now
Yes,
for sure. Yeah.
unfortunately.
And there's different testing that you can do and all those kind of things.
Yes,
So we do that
yes.
all the time. Awesome. Well, Kathryn, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. It's so important for people to get the right kind of sleep. And I really enjoyed this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it as well.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you share this with somebody who's struggling with sleep. Like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you in the next episode. God bless.